Well, hi there, and welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk Real Estate Investing. I'm your host, Sharon Vornholt, and I'm so happy you're tuning in today. My guest is Al Nicoletti, and Al is a Florida probate attorney who has carved out a unique niche in solving simple and complex probate matters. These are things that once stalled real estate deals. He's figured this out, and I'm so anxious to talk to him about it. He's also developed a strategy to structure probates so that they are fast, efficient, and done right. And I want to talk about that too, because this can really turn people off of working in the niche of probates. So we're going to talk about advanced strategies for structuring probate deals, how to deal with common problems, and a lot more. Al works with real estate investors. He works with agents and brokers and other real estate professionals. In addition to managing his law practice, he has a weekly live podcast show. He's a speaker, he's an influencer, and a social media content creator. He says he's a probate attorney extraordinaire. And I once told Al when we did a show before, he has sparkle, but I think it might be more like fireworks, maybe. I'm not really sure. Welcome to the show, Al.
Sharon, thank you so much. Great introduction. Yeah, like you said on my show, it was like I brought the sizzle. And we had such a great time on the episode talking all about probate that we can get into so many things for the audience and the viewers that we can really cover when we get into the probate world.
Yeah. So I might have you I kind of hit the high points of what you do, but I want you to talk a little bit about what you specialize in your law practice, and just tell people, what you do.
Yeah. So for starters, my name is Al Nicoletti. I'm a Florida probate attorney, and I really specialize in really messy issues that come up on title. I had an opportunity back in 2020 to really decide what direction I wanted to go in my practice after the pandemic hit really hard. A lot of issues were happening with evictions. And before the pandemic, there were so many different things we were working on in the real estate world. So at that time, I really had to figure out, what did I really want to get into? What was going to, of course, one, make money. Two, what did I enjoy doing and really get me out of bed, and really what was I passionate about? And that ended up being going more into probate, diving more into these title issues, things that people had an issue solving. And that's what I work on today. I do things in the probate world, helping title companies overcome issues when the title commitments come back and say, hey, this needs 3 probates, 4 probates. Oh, it's a wild deed. We got to quiet the title. Hey, by the way, just had a call today. One guy said, I want to sell the property, but the other person on title is deceased. I can't find him. I don't know where family members are. How do we overcome that? Or the one that's popping up also, Sharon, is properties titled in a trust. The trustees are dead. Somebody's got a copy of it, and now we got to appoint somebody. Or maybe there's a situation where they don't even know where the trust is. How do we overcome that? So my practice has really evolved around that and being a specialist in my industry when it comes to that.
And you are that for sure. What in the world made you want to be an attorney? You talked about why you chose probates. That's an interesting topic because a lot of people pivoted after COVID. But what the heck made you want to be an attorney to begin with?
Boy, that's a great question, because it was never something that was kind of something I was thinking about early on in my youth. I never thought I was going to be a lawyer, maybe thought it was going to be a doctor, or maybe a couple other things I was looking at. But what ended up happening is I was in music for 15 years. I played violin very long time. Did that in middle school, high school, college. I went to the University of Miami and played violin there. And I realized that music wasn't going to make the kind of money I wanted to make. I really enjoyed it. There were some things I probably wanted to do more of when we were getting trained in music, but we weren't really there. But ultimately, I wanted to make money. So I think I had to pivot away from that idea of being in music all the time to something that was going to generate more of what I really wanted to do in life. And medicine, really, the doctor route, I didn't really see that working out. I didn't really enjoy those classes, but I wanted to do something that would take my personality, maybe also do something in the music world, and then be able to either advocate or, just take my personality and apply it in a world that I wanted to be in. And for some reason, I chose law. I didn't know what I was really getting into. I knew that we were going to have debates and legal arguments, and I like that world. And in fact, there's a whole backstory to how I really got into it. When '08 hit, and this was back in 2011, all of our roommates, we were at a house. One of those houses we were renting was in foreclosure. And the landlord just ghosted, disappeared, totally disappeared. And we got served. And we had to make an appearance in court because we had to make sure we could stay the rest of the semester. And I actually went to court. I went before the judge. I had no, I don't know. I guess I had the ability to stand up and actually, speak my mind. So I realized then that I could probably get into that. But the law world and transitioning to real estate, I knew that the music world and the entertainment industry was very niche, did a big paper in school. I realized that it was just so niched out. You're talking LA, Nashville, Atlanta, maybe New York, but it's so nichey. And when I was studying for the bar, I really enjoyed the real estate topics. I remember taking it in class, but not the same as when we were studying, all the flashcards and all the questions.
Yeah.
And I remember being outside and saying, this seems so interesting. So I took that, passed the bar, got a job with my first mentor, Dennis Haber. Dennis took me under his wing. And I really learned the foreclosure defense world, all the stuff that was going on in the litigation world. He had been doing it for 30 plus years. So I started working there, dabbled in some probate. And it was at that point that I started realizing that there was this other world in probate. And one of my best friends, he just told me about it and we dove into it. So you want to talk about a really windy, undecisive story of how it all came to be and how I'm sitting in front of you today. I tell my mom all the time, mom tells me, she's like, it is one of the wildest stories of how it all came together, because who knew I was going to be on your show, Sharon, at this time, on this day. It's crazy.
Exactly. So many of us got here through a really windy road. You go, how the heck did I ever get from way over here to here? But we did it. And sometimes when I talk about real estate strategies, I'll say to people, well, you need to try a few things like you did, like I did. But at the end of the day, I think one just chooses you. I think probate kind of spoke to you. Certainly law spoke to you. And I've done a lot of things in real estate, but I love probates and I love marketing and branding around all of that. We're both content creators, something I hammer home all the time to just Joe out there that's done 2 houses. You got to create some kind of content. Just pull out your smartphone.
Right.
But it's so important because that's how people know you. And it's certainly who you know, but it's more about who knows you when in this world. Who knows you? Who knows to call you?
Right. And one thing I've learned, especially touring and going to different conferences and having people on the show, is the real estate community reminds me a lot of the music community I was in. There's a lot of people in it, but it's a smaller world than you think. And there's a lot of people that are connected to a lot of other people nationally. And there's people that are in Washington that know people in Florida. So you never know who knows who in the world that can get you connected and has a deal going on or a situation going on. Think about it, Sharon. It's like Facebook. How many people now, when they need an attorney or they need somebody, that a real estate agent that specializes in something, how many of them just drop something like hey, do you know a realtor in this Kentucky area? And it's like immediately somebody in California is referring over somebody. It's an incredible world that we live in with content, right? So I'm really happy that someone like you understands that, because we're doing videos all the time. I'm constantly putting out that stuff.
Constantly. And I tell people all the time, they say, I'm not messing around with Facebook. And I tell them, if you're a business person, you are missing the boat, because it's the connections that bring you the other things. And I'm not suggesting that you stay on there all day and watch kitten videos, although on a stressful day, they can be helpful. But you meet people and they refer you and they learn about your expertise and all of the things we're talking about that make up this total package of Al Nicoletti. It's not one thing. It's not you and your law office. It's all of these things combined.
Right.
So one thing that I like that you do is you work with investors, you work with agents, you work with other people that are somehow connected with real estate, because when it comes to probates, we're all after the deal, whether it's we want to buy the deal or we want to list the property or whatever. So different, a little bit different strategies there, but we all have a lot of the same problems. And the fact that you work both sides of this, I love that, which a lot of real estate attorneys do, but I love that you can see this whole picture. And I want to talk about that a little bit, because they're not so different when you come to title issues and things like that.
Yeah, that was something I really learned quickly when I first started doing multiple probates, 3, 4, 5 in the beginning. I had to understand there were two components to this world, and a lot of agents and investors don't realize it. And lawyers don't even realize it. Some of them don't at all, which is there's the probate world, but then there's the title world. And some of the things that you think that are going to pass in the probate world still don't pass in the title world. So when I was first doing all of this and drafting everything, sending things to clients, getting things done, I had to learn that even when we got the orders we needed, the ultimate question was, is title insurance happy with it? Because if title insurance isn't happy with it, guess what? The deal's not closing, or they're going to come back to you and say, hey, you can't do this. And, you know, my point, I have stories on this, but one big thing that keeps coming up in different scenarios is I'll get a realtor that'll call me and say, hey, Al, this is not a probate I can send you. It's already in probate already. We're just trying to lock it up under contract. There's a lawyer, the lawyer got the court order, but the title company saying it's not good. We're just so confused what's going on. And my response is, this is exactly why when you do this world, when you get into this world, it's a double-edged sword, because you want to get into it where you list these properties, but sometimes they're with lawyers already. But then the other world is that if you go that route, you never know how long it's going to take. And you don't know if what they're going to do is going to satisfy title, versus somebody that understands that you can't get that order. Whatever that was that they got, you can't get it. And me trying to explain that to somebody that's trying to get a deal that I'm not on the probate on, it's like, it's very different to explain.
Yeah.
Or, you know, I have these two guys that are crushing it in Southwest Florida, crushing it down there. And one of the first deals that they got, they were actually super excited about probate after I talked about it. And one of these deals they got, there were like 25 beneficiaries.
Oh my gosh.
And it was already in probate. They had it going, but one of them called me one day and said, hey, Al, the title company said that we only need one of them, the personal representative, to sign for this contract and to sign the deeds at the title company. I said, really? He goes, yeah, but somebody's telling us that that's not going to work. So, you know, when you're in this world, you learn questions, you ask questions. So I ask questions about homestead and non-homestead things in Florida that really, those little things matter, right? Those little things matter for title. And I said, was this where that person lived and resided? And they said, yes. I said, well, I hate to break it to you, but all 25 are going to have to sign deeds at the title company. And they said, what? I said, yeah, this is homestead property, been there, done that. Title insurance is going to want everybody to participate. We get that question too. Let's not forget that one. They want nothing to do with the property. No. There's going to have to be participation. He goes, okay, well, I hope you're wrong. 2 months later, he comes back, calls me and goes, Al, you'll never believe it. They want deeds from everybody. And I said, boom, this is why working with the right people, that it's not just the probate attorney. I see things differently, Sharon. I view probates as a beginning and an end. How is this going to close? We had one time that, you know, everybody knows now I love the crazy and the weird and the different, but I also know my risk. I know my risk too, because I'll wait until closing to get paid, but that means that I know it's going to close. We had this
Exactly.
one that we're pretty sure there needed to be a guardianship. And I asked, do you know where anybody is? They had no idea. Do you know where this person is? No idea. I said, how is this going to close? We'll do the probate all day. How is this going to close? And you, as an investor and a realtor, you can't just look at it as a listing. You can't just look at it as a contract. You can't just look at somebody signing a document as a win. That's not a win. That's a step. The win is when you work with the right people and you actually you communicate about how do we close. The close is the win. That's when everybody wins. And that's why it's so important to know this stuff now.
So let me ask you this. Someone's going to ask this question. Is this the case in every state where every beneficiary has to participate, or is that a Florida thing? They might say, no, I live in Illinois. That's not the case here.
Okay, so for starters, I got to do my lawyer disclaimer, right? Every state is different. Get with an attorney in your jurisdiction on where you are. If you're in Illinois, find somebody also, and that's another thing I'm working on, is building a network of finding where these people are that think this way. I actually found one in Illinois. It's crazy. But like I would say, check your states, because Florida, it's an interesting question. Not every type of asset real estate wise will require all of them to be on board. Sometimes you may find a situation where you just need one on the contract, one at the closing, but then the other 9 need to get on board with the probate, or we get cute and creative, right? It gets probate, in terms of forms, in terms of what we do, in terms of things, it can be gray. You got to get creative with it. People think it's boilerplate, this and that. Maybe for like one with 1A or 2, but when I start telling you stories of 4 probates, or missing people, or somebody was in another country, we couldn't find them, those get complicated. How do you solve it? Do you need one? Do you need all? So definitely get with people like Sharon was explaining. I don't know if we were recording at the time, but Sharon was explaining, look, if you really want to get an understanding of this kind of stuff and education, of course, there's content out there. Of course, there's people that talk about this. There's conferences and seminars, but people that specialize in this, go meet with them. Go actually have that conversation. And we'll talk more about that too.
Yeah, and because I'm a big believer in that. Every state is different. And I think I've been incredibly lucky because I've only had a couple of complicated probate deals. Usually it's 2 sisters or a couple of brothers, and they go, yes, he's the executor. Yeah, we'll sign he's going to sign the paperwork. We're on board. And it's just like, honestly, it's just been like a regular closing, except for those few times when it wasn't, when people were missing. When the family tried to do it themselves, that's my worst nightmare, when they go down to the courthouse, which I don't know if you can do that everywhere. In Kentucky, you can do that. You can get the paperwork. They never do things in order. You just cannot get the sucker closed. I mean, it's just awful. And you have to get an attorney involved to kind of straighten out the mess and to fix the mess. But that is, it's just also interesting to me how things are different. And you mentioned something which I want to just stop here. And you mentioned quiet title. For people that might not know what that is, explain that to them.
It's definitely a different animal. So quiet title it's a function in law that can be used where there's issues on title, maybe judgments, liens, maybe an estate is outstanding. It depends on the situation that's going on. Maybe there's a wild deed, a deed that's just randomly recorded, maybe a fraudulent deed. And it's a lawsuit that's used to serve those entities, those things, those clouds, what they call clouds on title. Because if you're trying to buy that property, title insurance is not going to insure the policy because these things still exist. But the quiet title function is to try to wipe them out serve them, give them the ability to come back and say something that they have an interest, or that they assert their lien or assert what their position is.
Mhm.
And the function of it is, if they don't come back and they don't say anything, then they're defaulted. And then eventually it goes to another hearing. The order goes before the judge, and the judge says, nope, you were served, you never responded, I'm going to
Mhm.
sign this order. And the order gets recorded, and that order then goes to the title company. Title company says, well, we looked at the title commitment, this person was served, this person was served, nobody responded.
Mhm.
And then that you're able to move forward on getting the title insurance. So it's a unique function that it's expensive. It can be long, obviously, different counties, different jurisdictions, or different states. Maybe it's
Mhm.
faster. Maybe probate, maybe a quiet title super fast in Illinois, but probate takes forever there, right? But
Mhm.
in Florida, quiet titles are long, and they get pricey, but they're unique if there's room in the deal. I could tell you a wild story about a wild deed where I think these two guys were going around just looking either for vacant properties, or I don't know what they were doing. And what they would do is they prepare these deeds, record them. So the idea is that the county can't reject it, because the county's not looking at chain of title. They're not looking at, oh, Susie, well, it should be going from Susie to this one. They're not checking. It looks like a deed. It smells like a deed. It tastes like a deed. We record the deed. And so then they're on title, and then they're renting the property. Meanwhile, this lady who inherited it from her mom moves out of the state to another state. Investors driving for dollars, sees his house, looks it up, looks interesting, has potential, knocks on the door, and these two tenants are inside and says, oh, you got to get in touch with our landlord, blah, blah, blah. And he said, that's not the same lady that inherited this property. So that's when it went on a whole spiral to find out that these people were doing this multiple times. And the lady gets in touch with us. We use the quiet title function to serve this guy, these
Mhm.
people, to unwind the situation so that she can then sell the property, investor then can buy the property. So quiet title is used in very interesting circumstances.
That is so interesting. I know that in many areas, I've found out recently that New York, they don't have a notice to creditors. I didn't know that until I had a student in New York. Who knew, right?
Yeah.
So I always thought that was so interesting that in states, they'll have maybe 6 months, or maybe it's 3 notices in the paper, whatever the state laws are, the notice to creditors. And then a creditor, you've got this much time to maybe 6 months to bring it forth, and then it's just gone. You're just out of luck. And then they'll try to come back and say, well, we just found out about it. Sorry, that's not the law, but that is there are so many nuances to probate. Oh my gosh, there are so many nuances to probate. So what are, Al, some of the common problems that you see that people get hung up on, that they're likely to come across, that might be less complex problems, but they're still problems?
I think that can be answered in a couple of ways. I think probate, first of all, sounds like the scary word that a lot of people are like, oh, well, as soon as we see probates involved, we don't want anything to do with it.
Mhm.
First thing I'd say is, whoa, 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 back up, get with the right professional, because that could be a great deal. So don't let the word itself stop you and hang you up from getting that deal. Second thing is, one thing that keeps happening right now, and this is a great time to have this discussion, is a realtor will refer the probate over, which is great, or the title company will say, hey, this has got to go through probate. But where the problem ends up being is, we're looking at it, I'm looking at it, the client's looking at it, but then we're not getting the documents we need, or we're not getting the title work, or we're not understanding what the objective is. Is it a short sale? Is it a regular sale? Is somebody doing creative finance? Is somebody doing subject to? Like, we don't know what's going on. Or is it a land deal? Like, I just did a full analysis on a piece of land property, come to find out there's no room in the deal. So I think people get hung up on, let's just send this over and we're out. And I think that ends up being the incorrect approach, because you want to be involved. I didn't say too involved. I didn't say, I say overly involved. You want to be involved to a point where you can be helpful in facilitating and understanding what's going on. So one thing we've been doing, Sharon, is conference calls. Especially for people that have high volume deals where it's just like, it's one probate after another probate after new client, because we want to make sure everybody knows what needs to happen for this to get done.
Right.
And the hang up for most investors is they don't know what's going on. They don't know what's happening. We don't know what's going on. Wait, I followed up with the lawyer, didn't hear anything. And I realized we had this one investor, and thank God this happened. We had this one investor shift over so many probates because they heard about what I do, how I get it done. I get it done efficiently. We make sure we get everything. That started the whole conference call thing that everybody gets on board. If the client's okay with it, we'll get the investor, everybody on the call, because what was happening is I had 4 consults in a row. And after all 4, everybody wanted to know, what did we need to do? 3 weeks later, they said, where are we at with the probate? And my answer was, we're nowhere. And they said, why are we nowhere? And I said, because the sellers never got what we needed. And so people throw up their arms. Oh, this is why I don't like to do probate. This is what happens with probate. No. It's no different. Doing probate's no different than any other deal. The problem is the communication. Yeah. And I've had to really instill that with a lot of people in terms of get your acquisitions team on the call. If you want to understand what's going on, be on the call, because otherwise you're going to be frustrated. You're not going to know what we need to do. Everybody likes to know next steps. So people get hung up on the word. It's not the word probate. It's a level of effective communication that seems to be the problem, that can ultimately change you from being just average to awesome as a probate investor, as a probate realtor. It's crazy.
I love that, because I remember the days when you used to try to get the 4 brothers and sisters or whoever at the kitchen table, get them all there, because this one wanted to sell. This one didn't like the price. They wanted to sell, but they wanted a fixed up price. And getting those people, talking to them one-on-one, and then they talk amongst each other, was just a nightmare situation. So at least now with Zoom, and even just pretty much everybody knows how to get on Zoom now, you can have these conversations. But I like that you mentioned getting the acquisition manager, get everybody on board that's going to have a role in the deal. And then that way, everybody is always on the same plate. And from your time standpoint and your headaches, it's got to be huge.
Huge. It's a game changer. Actually, yeah. I've had multiple owners of the real estate companies that we're doing this with tell me that in the beginning they were lost. I just talked to these 2 guys that are just killing it, and we were just getting updated on some files, what's going on. I said, hey, let me ask you, how do you like this new system that we're doing? They were like, oh, it's game changer. I said, why? He said, because now we know what we need to do next. If we don't want to keep wasting time with leads that the seller's just going to not get what we need. If the lady's not going to get us the will, why are we still following up with her? Yeah. Right? If they're not going to get us the death certificates, or we're not going to know where to go, or the price is really high and they're not going to participate, why are we in this? That's the other thing too. I had a deal just come up yesterday where it's definitely a little bit more intensive than 2 heirs knocking out. Like, we got more work to do. Yeah. Well, we didn't have a conference call, and thankfully the investor understood what the price was. But here's the thing, is that it's helping understand the full picture. Timing. Can we get the court order? Oh, wait a second. The date of death is less than 2 years, non-homestead. We can get the property sold, but seller, here's the problem. And full disclosure, you just won't see your money on this particular deal. That doesn't happen all the time, but this particular deal for 5 to 6 months. And the reason that having that call helps that situation is because now the investor knows it's not, wait, why is this? Why is that? It's like, no, this is why. and everybody understands. That's been huge, Sharon. Is something that's been helping me. You know, I have an assistant, and she also had to figure out even a better system than what I was doing too, because I was doing blind consults. You know,
Yeah.
lawyers, they need documents to look at.
Mhm.
And in the beginning, I'm just, you know, hey, this one died at this point. Okay, then there's a will. Okay, the will. Where's the will? Oh, we still don't have it. Well, and then I get the will. It's not properly executed. It left it to a niece. Well, who's the niece? Oh, she wants nothing to do with this anymore.
Mhm.
You got to have the stuff at the table. Your time, Sharon, is super valuable. My time is super valuable. So is the title companies. And that there's no real hangups in a probate. Yes, courts run at their speed. We can't help what one county does, what one judge wants to do, one judge's requirements. Can't help that. But what we can help is our effective communication among another, email chains. Simple business tip. If you have a deal, property you put estate name in the subject line, estate name, property address, CC everybody, so that when, you know, there's things going on, why isn't this one getting something? This here, acquisition guy, we're still waiting for the death certificate. Oh, okay, now they'll get with the seller. There's no, everybody knows what's going on. That's the key.
One thing that I see that's huge, you mentioned that people that are really building big businesses is they have this point where they're starting with their base knowledge, and you are educating them, the whole team. So 1 year or 2 years from now, they're going to be superstars because they've gotten these bite-sized pieces. You haven't said, okay, Al's going to teach you everything today. I'm going to teach you something every week. And then at the end of a year or two, the way most people learn best, you've got this vast amount of knowledge that the next guy doesn't have.
Yes, and it's crazy because one deal is not the same from another deal. I blow people's minds all the time, especially ones that even in high volume. They'll tell me about some crazy deal, and they said, we only need these 3 people, we're good. I was like, whoa, back up, start from the beginning, and we do a full analysis. And then at the end, we find out there's 3 more kids, and they're like, what? There's 3 more kids? But here's the thing. You have to do that. You have to do it the right way. And you're right. All of these little things, these little tidbits, they're going to look like rock stars for sure. The crazy part though, Sharon, is I still haven't seen a lot of things in different situations come up. There's still things that I hypothesize with a buddy of mine on different things that come up. We still haven't seen it. And it's going to be exciting when it comes up, because we're like, how do we do it? We have one where we don't even know what's going to happen. The guy died. We don't know. There's no death certificate. There's no obituary. There's nothing. Dies maybe in the 1950s and 60s.
What?
Property still coming up under his name. We know that there's heirs. We have one person, another. We know that there's people out there, but nobody knows what's going on, and we're trying to figure that out. This is not a 1, 2, 3 thing. Like, these get super intensive and expensive. But that's why you have a specialist.
What happens when the family, they suddenly get around to solving this probate and they don't have any money? Do you make sure that there's enough equity in the property? I mean, I would assume that's the way you do it. You get paid, but you have to know you're going to get paid.
Great question. And we'll segment into where the market is at today, because that definitely goes into it. Yeah, I always try to figure out, like, what's the payoff? What's, if there's a mortgage, what's the payoff? What's the equity? What are you listing it for? What are you buying it for? Absolutely. I want to know. It's not that I care about what you're getting it for, even if you're making 30, 40,000. That's not what I'm worried about. What I'm worried about is this thing going to close? Is everybody going to get paid? Or are we going to be in a situation where nobody's getting paid, and we're going to walk away and nobody's coming out at all with anything? I'm always doing that. The team, we're always figuring out what's going on. And this kind of segues into where the market's at today.
Yeah.
It's definitely slowed down. And if you want to date stamp where we're at today, it's up to you. I don't know when it goes live, but it's definitely slowed down. So I'll tell you where we were at like a couple months ago. I was at a point of 10 consults a day.
Mm-hmm.
10. That's definitely slowed down to 5 to 6.
Okay, so let's just put a time. So we're in October of 2022. I expect the show will go live in a couple of weeks. So we'll be still in the realm.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's definitely been a slowdown from June because I remember my producer coming over. I don't know if it was like May or April, but I was outside. I was on the phone, had the earpiece in constantly, and it's definitely slowed. But what's happened is because these interest rates, the Fed keeps raising the rates,
Mhm.
and people don't want to pay 7%. I mean, yes, there's cash buyers, are always going to have cash buyers, but not a lot of people buy properties with cash. They do financing, and they're not always doing creative financing or seller terms. They're doing like straight up loans from banks. And what started happening is hedge funds stopped buying from wholesalers. I had some wholesalers like, hey, is the probate done? Is the probate done? Then all of a sudden I didn't hear from them.
Mm-hmm.
And then buyers started backing out of deals. The market starts cooling a little bit. People don't want to sell it for this price. They want to sell it for this price. Buyers don't want to buy it for that price. And all of a sudden they're out of the deal. And I probably had about 10 probates that everybody was itching to get done at that particular time that we got done. And in the span of 3 weeks, all of a sudden, we still haven't closed on them. And I tell you that because people got to be aware of, one, the market conditions and what's happening before you get super engaged with probate. Probate is a process of moving that title over. It's transferring the title over so people can sell. That's probate. But there's so many other things that go involved in a deal, period, whether it's due diligence on wetlands, environmental issues, if it's a short sale, is the bank going to approve it? What kind of condition is the property in? What's a buyer willing to pay for it? Who is your buyer? Vetting your buyers. All of these things, when it's a hot market, that goes out the window. Because you're taking everybody. But now that it's cooling down, you're starting to really see who the players are, and you got to be smart about what is your end game with that property. You have to ask yourself, if you're buying that because you're going to assign it out to somebody, before you do that and say, nope, this is it. What happens when? What happens if I can't get a buyer? Am I going to hold it and rehab it? Am I going to hold it, do some kind of rehab and Airbnb it, or long-term hold until the market shifts and we can sell it? Is it a short-term play? Is it a long-term play? It's no different. You have to think about that as the agent, as the investor, and what's happening, especially in this market right now. I had this deal come up yesterday, and I said, there's no way I could wait for my cost at closing. I have to have my costs now, because I have no idea who your buyer is. If they're going to back out, we're going to be left holding our hands. And I have it on several deals, and it's made me really rethink the structure, really rethink how are we going to do this? What's the play? And it gets everybody in a better position of calculated moves, thinking critically about the deal.
You have to have a plan B, and see, you're too young. You didn't live through the misery of 2008, 2009. But I remember back then when, so I was rehabbing primarily back then. And, if it was a good rehab deal, it was a good rehab deal. You would just sell it and make your money, and that was it. Well, suddenly, it seemed like overnight, a retail buyer could not get a loan. I mean, there I am with these properties that I'm going, what the heck, I've got these properties. What is my plan B going to be? And then I had to look at cash flow, because it might be a great rehab with the $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 upside, even in a kind of a crap market. But that does not mean that property will cash flow if you get stuck with it. If the market's going down, and then we got together as investors, and that became my new buying criteria. So I started wholesaling at that point, but my buying criteria completely changed, because my end buyer, who was always an investor, had to have multiple exit strategies. Like you said, if their main strategy was fix and flip, well, does somebody want to get a loan, or can they get a loan? In this case, it's do they want to pay 7%, but back then it was, can they even get a loan? No, nobody wants to loan any money. So in that case, then what am I going to do? Am I going to hold it and use it as a rental? Well, for me, is it going to cash flow? It has to cash flow a certain amount, but you had to have multiple exit strategies, and you could not rely on what I call the easy path. The easy path is the one we've been on. It was the one back then where if you were breathing and you had a job, you could get a loan, which was kind of explained the whole collapse of 2008. A lot of people had mortgages that had no business having mortgages. But it is so interesting because in a lot of ways, we're back in the same situation. You're having to reimagine the way you do business, exit strategies, all of those things.
Exactly. We're back to that. And I don't remember what that was like at all, because I was in college at that point, right? But I'm seeing that it's not even a outside perspective. It's actually affecting my business now, because it's not the probates that are causing the issues. And there may be different procedures and different things in different counties. That's not the problem. The problem is that when people are interested in selling and there's no buyers, the seller's got to come off the price. And some of them don't even want to sell right now. And then when they don't want to sell, that means there's less inventory on the market. And now buyers don't want to pay those prices. So we're kind of in a flux. And some realtors I'm talking to have actually said, hey, we actually like it because now we get to negotiate more for our buyers and sellers. But it's something that's just been affecting the way I've seen business lately. And it's had me refocus and pivot in a communicative position to investors on what are you doing with this? What's really happening? It's not, how many people, where's the will? Now it's, what are you really doing with this? What's happening? What do you plan? You have to know.
So what do you see the future of probate is for investors? I mean, the people that want to list their property, they will always still continue to list their property. They may not, like you said, they'll have to make some adjustments, maybe in price and different things, terms, whatever. But for investors that have probate as a big part of their business, give me some magical advice here, Al.
Oh, it's going to be huge. We're just in the early stages of this. So that's a lot of also why I push probate more and more and talking about it, is because I've seen some of where the stats are going. Florida's only getting busier now, right? There's so much more development than ever in Florida. I know, I'm sure in Georgia, sure, you're seeing developments go up in Kentucky and different places. So the housing's not changing in terms of people, expanding and moving out. And we're going to see that happen more and more. But it's going to increase dramatically. In Florida alone, we're going to see it double, triple the number of probates that probably happen in the next 10, 20, 30 years. It's not going away. This is now the time, like Sharon was talking about backstage, this is now the time to really build relationships, to really get to understand little tidbits and learn and listen and actively understand. Because if you understand this now, when you pick up that deal 5 years from now, because of all that knowledge that you had, and it ends up being probate, you go into it being more confident. Somebody's more likely to list it with you or be more likely to sell it to you, maybe even at a lesser price than somebody was offering to buy, just because you had the knowledge and just because you have the team that you work with. So my best thing to tell you, Sharon, is that this is a niche that, while it's been around for ages, been around for many years. I mean, people have gone through this for many years. This is really at an early point in terms of it's only going to increase. This is not a niche that's going away. This is a niche that a lot more people you're going to see talk about, and you got to get in the game now. You have to.
Well, I firmly believe that. And you touched on something that, I was saying that marketing is how you get leads, but branding is why they choose you. And all the time I tell people that, and it's just what you said. You may not offer the highest price, but it is the credibility. It is the trustworthiness. It is that brand that you've built around yourself. And you do that through things like we do. And you do that through things. You don't have to have a podcast. You have to be visible. You have to create some kind of content because people, you can't be the best kept secret in town. They have to know who you are. But you just build that one tiny little thing at a time. And then one day, Al's got this huge brand. He's got sizzle. Not everybody has sizzle. Al has sizzle, but you don't have to do that. You don't have to become someone you're not. You can be yourself. You become an expert through constant learning and through putting yourself out there. But you build this thing around you called your brand, and people will choose you. And that should be, in my estimation, the number one thing you're focusing on now. You should be focused, in addition to your skills, you should be focusing on your brand and how you, if Al and I go out there and 3 other people and they don't have content, Al and I are going to be duking it out. That's just the way it is, because we have purposefully done this. But you need to be thinking about that. There's a saying that different is better than better. You want to find a way to be different. And one of my favorite people, favorite authors, Mike Michalowicz, has got a marketing book out called Get Different, Marketing That Can't Be Ignored. And that book will teach you how to stand out in your marketplace. You don't have to be the biggest. You can be Al's age. You don't have to be 50 years old and have all these decades of experience. You just have to have built an awareness and shown people that you are truly an expert at what you do.
That's it. And Sharon, it's crazy too, because I know this investment company that they always had a logo, they always had a brand going. But what really changed the game for them too was having their employees be visible on the email signature block and having the website, and also talking about values and mission statement, because now you're not just a random investment company. Now you actually are one with purpose, one with people that they put a name to a face. A lot of people, sellers, kind of want to see that, like, who am I talking to? Who is John? Who is Sharon? I want to see Sharon, oh, okay, I can recognize that. And that's what you want to have, is the image, the little things, like we talked about on my show, Sharon, which was website, having images, branding, photos, content, big. I can't stress that enough.
Yeah. So your physical attributes, like Al said, your logos, your colors, and those things, you should have them, but they're not the essence of your brand. Your brand is what you stand for. If Al has got small children and he volunteers at the baseball field, people should know that about him. They should know. Or if he helped out at Habitat for Humanity or whatever it is, they want to know you on a personal level, that you are a good person, but you're a qualified business person. And I also like to say your brand is what people say about you after you leave the room. What is the feeling you leave people with? Is it trust? Hopefully it's trust. It's, your skills and all of that, but they just want to know that you're a good person, that you're genuine, that you know what you're doing. And it's the feeling you leave people with.
Absolutely. And the other thing I'll say onto that is, it's also, it's a testament to what you're doing when you're not even in that room and somebody's on stage talking about, the different people in the local community, or just somebody, and they name drop you and they just say your name. And that means that you're cementing that brand, that awareness, that mission statement and purpose just out there.
Yeah. Well, you do a terrific job of creating content. I love your content. I love your little short things. And I love the way you explain these little things. There's a final question I wanted to ask you before we wrap this up. When you are in a probate situation and the property needs to be sold in general, it needs to be sold so that the credit, the assets need to be sold so the creditors can be paid, the heirs get what's coming to them, that whole process. What are some ways you might be able to do a creative deal? They have been few and far between in my area because everything needs to be converted to cash. How do you sidestep, or can you ever sidestep around that and do something creative with the interest rates being what they are?
I think you can get creative in deals, period, because probate in terms of Florida, I don't know, maybe it means something different in another state, but in terms of Florida, it's simply shifting title over to people now that own it. Once the title moves to their names, now they can choose what to do with what they want with it. So I think it's possible to get creative on deals depending on the equity, depending on due diligence and pulling title commitments, making sure you're not getting into something with massive nuisance liens or demolition liens and mortgages and IRS liens that happens to. I think you can get creative with any deal. It's all any probate deal, because ultimately whoever is going to inherit, or whoever, maybe 10 people, 9 people, they are then going to decide what happens next. And if they wanted to do something that was a seller terms or creative financing, or work with maybe someone private, not a bank, not an institution, but they want to work with somebody that's going to give private lending and do some kind of deal that way. Who knows? Lease options, anything that you can imagine. It's possible, but you got to run your numbers. You got to do due diligence. You have to make sure that it makes sense for everybody, lawyer involved, the title company involved, things are not being violated, that you're able to actually ethically and professionally do it. Then it works. And I'll say this, if you do deals like that, and there's something really creative. This is why you get with people like Sharon that have been in the industry a long time. This is why you get with people that have been doing this 20, 30 plus years, because they've seen the good, they've seen the bad, they've been through the experience, they've been through the people that are crazy and don't understand, or people that are very understanding and were able to get through a deal. It makes a difference when you JV with people that have experience. Because you're 1 to 2 years in or 3 years in. That's the difference.
Yeah. Interesting stuff, Al. You have any final advice for people? They're going to have to probably listen to this show 2 or 3 times to get all this in their head.
That's what I tell people on my show now too, because some people drop a lot of golden nuggets and tips and things. And I'm like, wait a second, like you can make 4 different podcasts out of that one thing. So much. Biggest tip to tell people, especially what I'm learning right now, is really participate, be on board with these deals. Probates are going to come up. Deals are going to come up. When you put your mind to it and you really want a probate deal, or you really want that listing, it's going to come up when you work hard and you tackle it. But the difference between just getting it and closing it is all the other work that goes into it. Don't just get the file and move on to something else. Work it, communicate, find out. Are you in it too much? Are you in it too little? Find out from what's happening, because you want to also make the lawyer's life easy, the title company's life easier, your clients, the ones that want to sell the property, or the people that are just selling, period, you're buying the property. Be involved, participate, communicate. A lot of the basics that people miss can be very essential to you getting a deal done, which makes all the difference. I truly believe that the more I see this, the more I'm looking at it, I'm like, well, wait a second, if I was the investor, I would have done this, right? It's hindsight's 2020 when you're looking at what somebody else is doing, or you're learning from someone else's mistakes. I would say focus, get the big picture, ask questions. Yes, it's going to take time, but probate deals are some of the biggest deals that I've seen and some people have seen. And these are people that have been in the industry for more than 20 years.
They historically were always my best deals, most profitable deals. And if you come at it from the mindset that I have and that Al certainly has, that we're problem solvers, it's just one problem at a time. Most people simply will not do that. They're going, no, if there's too much trouble, I'm on to the next thing. Well, that's one of the ways you set yourself apart, because we are problem solvers, and that's our skill set. Well, Al, it has been a pleasure to get to talk to you again. So thanks for coming on the show. And I'll put all the links to Al's website, his YouTube channel, his social media links. I'll put all of those in the show notes below. But if someone has a burning question, they said, I've got to get in touch with Al today, where can they find you today?
So best place is social media. So I'm on Instagram at Attorney Nicoletti. We'll drop all that stuff. Sharon will put that
Mhm.
there. You can find me on Facebook under Al Nicoletti. I have my show, The Al Nicoletti Show, which is on iTunes and Spotify, Google Play. It's all out there. And of course, my YouTube channel. So you can find all my info and all my contact on my YouTube channel under Al Nicoletti, and my website. So my website, we just revamped it, tweaked it up a little bit on the practice areas that I'm doing. But you can go to www.alnicoletti.com. You'll see the phone number, the email. You'll even have an option to contact me. And that's the best ways to find me there.
Okay. Well, thanks again, Al, and thanks to all the listeners that come out week after week. And please share the show and give Al some love. Leave him a rating and a review over on iTunes, and I would appreciate it too. I will see you all same time, same place next week. Bye for now.